Okie dokie. Welcome, everybody. I am Nick Henning, aka Phoenix. We are rocking the Great Western Trail finals for February. We've got MeepleMaven, TrulyFriendlyFoe, TFF, and Abacus here. And looks like they're in orders 1, 2, 3 right here. And we have a crazy bandit flop going on here. Lots and lots of cash available and very heavy builders set up at the beginning. So entirely reasonable that we're going to see 2 players moving into builders in this setup. Let's see what we got for buildings here. We are looking at the classic 444 10B building here. 4 coins, 4 trains, and 4 movement. Amongst maybe also the hiring and engineers. Could be kind of a pivot for somebody. Rewards for placing on stations. Hazard remover is interesting. And the cow market building. I'm expecting 2 builder players and I think one of those builder players is very likely to do trains, and we might legitimately see no engineer players because there's no engineers in play. The 2 buildings at the end here are both eng buildings, which is pretty bad for an engineering strategy. So I would expect that that's not going to be super viable. Movement wise, this is really good for Cowboys. Again, this building E in the bottom left corner here. So Cowboys basically starts here and then drops somewhere up here. I mean, actually, really what they want to do is drop a cow market somewhere in this region so they can cow deliver. It's going to be a little slow at the beginning, a little awkward at the end, depending on how the players build here. I mean, of course, with 6 bandits out here and no hazards, we're going to get very quick moves through at the beginning, but we are going to see some hazards coming out, and it's going to be pretty expensive to move through this desert unless someone removes one of these hazards. So that's something that the players are going to have to think about. And looks like MeepleMaven says, I'm going to go ahead and grab the starting 5 coins there, plus another coin. I think that absolutely makes sense. 6 coins is just way too much to say no to. That would pretty much be my snap choice in the open as well. Now from here, assuming no shenanigans happens, it's entirely possible that he can walk onto building A here and hire some heads if he's got a white cow in his hand, and then drop $14 to buy double people. That's an option. The other players can block this in a few ways. One is they can drop, exactly what TFS is doing here. I'm expecting to see a taxer probably in the bottom here. We've got the taxer that is the not terribly exciting action building. It's just very hard to trigger this. And so it doesn't much matter where it is in this row for now, but might matter where he wants to develop it for the future. And I could see if he's going for building, he's going to maybe want to end up upgrading it to this 444 here, depending on how builder purchasing happens. Because next turn, if TFF buys 2 builders, then he can go from 3, right? With 3 builders, he can go from here to this location, go from 1 to 4, and then turn that 4 into an 8 when he does hire the extra builder there. So where he wants this location to be and have it move him 4 spaces does really matter. This is probably a pretty good spot because 1, 2 gets him directly onto this, which is nice for that builder strategy. So I like putting it at the beginning here, but it is absolutely worth thinking about where those 4 moves would get you. If you want to be a little bit safer about delivering here and suspected that you're going to need to get lots of money because builders tend to be pretty expensive, I could see shoving this up maybe 1 more spot. I would consider dropping this in the middle of the route right here myself, just to guarantee that if the other players really, really didn't want to block you, they could in theory fill, if you're here and they play building here, here, and here, all of a sudden your 4 move is not getting you in to this location. I think that's unlikely in a 3-player game. Much more relevant in a 4-player game, but it is possible if the other players feel like TFF ends up being in just a dominating position here. That means that Abacus's choices are a little bit more diminished. Oh, actually, I'm curious what cards TFS discarded. TFS discarded a gray. Sure, fair enough. And Abacus looks like he's discarded 2 grays. Lots of grays being dumped. That's interesting. I actually think that Abacus had a very viable play in stopping at building F here, discarding those 2 Criollos to put him to 12, and then the white cow would come here and he could double buy. But it looks like he actually just wants to straight up get out of the building game. He wants to do his own thing. And so he is going to get that cowboy and really lean into that cowboy strategy. My guess is he's going to stop there and build the cow market right after this. MeepleMaven's going to just shoot right around. Ooh, looks like he was going to have to discard a pair of white cows, which is a little awkward. Discarding a pair of white cows there would mean that he doesn't necessarily have the white cow for this. It is $2 better, but if he ends up, essentially not delivering with a white cow, that could be pretty painful. So I could see why he's considering undoing that. It's actually like an entirely reasonable choice to maybe swing around here and just take like a single dollar if he only has the 2 whites in his hand, or draw discard if his hand is particularly clunky in some other way. What I'm imagining is like a pretty clunky hand would be like white, white, black, black cow. Because the 2 blacks aren't going to be very useful. Although if it was white, white, black, black, he would actually just discard the double blacks. So he's probably holding on to a little bit more of a rainbow. Something like a white, white, black, green is probably what's in his hand based on that discard. And he's going to actually use a draw discard here, trying to draw into some Criollos. That's pretty interesting. I'll have to see what he discards here. I'm a little bit more precious with my draw discards. As builder, that's maybe a little bit more okay. You kind of just end up jamming. You maybe don't have that many good deliveries, particularly with this 4-4-4 setup, but I'm just generally pretty loath to do that. He ends up discarding a green and a white so that he can discard 2 Criollos here, I'm sure. Which suggests to me that he then has 3 white cards in his hand. Is maybe just kind of trying to cycle through the deck a little bit faster. I'm not sure that I'm the hugest fan of that draw discard. Without knowing exactly what he has in his hand, we can't tell, but we might be able to kind of like back solve it. Looks like we have a 5 delivery here for TFF, who rightly skips over this nonsense at the end and correctly makes the desert just a more miserable space. And we see more builders and more cowboys to just make the world pretty pricey. I think one thing that TFF should have considered here was putting, oh no, they had no choice with this. This was actually a builder. I was going to say putting the cowboy in the 7 spot, knowing that he's likely second builder here and making it just a smidge more expensive for Abacus. But I was wrong. I think that these were both builders at the time, so he didn't actually have a choice here. Abacus making the wise play of dropping this. This is going to be much better in the short term. In the long term, though, this is going to be a little bit awkward because it's unlikely that he's going to shoot up from building E, the first cow market down here, up to this with a pair of moves, given already what's kind of been in the way. I suspect that there's going to be more building in the way in the desert here. It's going to get pretty clogged up. So he's going to have a little bit of an awkward middle route here. But, of course, the extra $2 and certificate is really, really powerful. It's going to rush him to that 10 value delivery for Chicago quite soon. So it's kind of this question of the immediate benefit versus the long-term benefit. Then again, he's not necessarily beholden to having to play a cowboy strategy here. If he just wants to buy a couple cows from this market while he can at some discounts and then move into buying other builders, that's actually viable as well. Unsurprisingly, MeepleMaven then stops off and gets the 2 builders. I think that absolutely makes a ton of sense. We then have, let's see, what do we have? TFF stops and picks up a whole bunch of money. Unsurprisingly, Abacus here dropping in. He is going to pick up a Corriente cow for a nice discount price of 3. Meeple's going to come in here. If he's got the green, he's going to be able to play the hazard remover. Wouldn't be too surprised to see the hazard remover dropped behind TFF's taxer here. There's not a lot of other very exciting places this hazard remover wants to be. The move to part of it means that putting it here or here, it actually sends you kind of to a place that you want to go. It'll put some taxes on TFF, who's in a really nice kind of position right now. The other option would be, I was going to say, going into the south here. This is going to let him kind of do a little bit more of a hybrid, remove things, get some value, drop here for a cattle market. But I personally am not a huge fan actually of this placement. I think that playing it in the desert, because then at the beginning of next lap, he goes and picks up some more bandit money and then moves 1, 2, 3 onto this and then moves 2 into here, kind of racing around. Usually as a builder, you want to set up that beginning structure as fast as possible. Now, an advantage of this setup right here, actually, now that I'm saying it, is that this is maybe not a long-term plan. Actually, now that I'm seeing it, I actually think I understand what TheMeepleMaven is thinking here. He's thinking, I can remove this hazard. We can all stop paying TFF. We'll just pay to go through the desert like normal. And then this can be the building that gets upgraded into the 444 building. And it's actually really great on this spot because then you can also discard a gray cow for the certificate and $2. That 4 move sends him around here. He's going to have to contend with the fact that there is this flood hazard in play that's going to be put into play almost certainly by Abacus right now. And so I can see the long-term benefits of this, but it's going to be pretty costly in the short term. I think it may come back. Well, it's not going to come back to haunt him because the benefits of what I'm suggesting are very short-term focused. So we'll have to see how this works in the long run based on how the hazards are drawn out of the bag going forward. TFF decides that he's got enough money that he can stop and buy a cow, which a lot of people don't do this. I actually am a pretty big fan of buying at least 1 3 cow when you're a builder strategy. Otherwise, the delivery to Chicago becomes like basically impossible. And so in this way, he's setting it up that he can deliver to Chicago and isn't going to be accidentally forced into a double Kansas City delivery throughout the course of the game. So I like a pickup with the amount of money that he has on hand here. It also suggests that he might not have had, 2 Criollos in his hand. Looking at his discard, there's 3 Criollos in there. So there's a good chance that he actually just doesn't have a pair, or the pair that he has is a pair of whites, which is awkward to use if he's planning on using one of the whites at building A here. So not exactly the ideal, probably, card circumstance for TFF there. Abacus comes in for the delivery. He's debating for a while here, but I'm pretty sure just stopping yellow or slowing down yellow is good. I guess he's debating whether he needs the extra dollar because he is the person that gets to take the benefit of this outlaw immediately. So actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, I think stopping and thinking about it makes a lot of sense. He's asking himself, should I give myself $1 extra or should I cost yellow $2? And actually giving yourself the extra dollar is almost certainly the right call, unless he's going to end up like paying out. So counting up how much money he has, we don't know what his delivery is going to look like, but he's going to go to Kansas City. He's going to have quite a lot of cash, and he's probably dropping out both of these. These are expensive cowboys here, but no one else, not relatively expensive compared to $5, I mean, but no one else is going to kind of want to mess with this. And so he is going to get to buy these if he's got $16. So he's going to stop here and kind of slow poke it a little bit, probably swing over into this building, buy himself another kind of discounted 3 cow. And then from there, you can move up here if he needs some extra cash, can stop for cash along the way. Looks like our delivery here, we haven't seen yet. For some reason, being very precious with the deliveries. Maybe debating a certificate use? Oh, that is a pretty awful hand there. 3 black 2s and a green 2 are absolutely not what he wanted to see in his hand. That means that he drew 2 of those cards in the aftermath of going to this market here. And if he ended up drawing 2 black cows, that's really painful because it's also $2 that he can't get from going to this market here. It would have been a pretty worthwhile consideration, I think, to draw 2, discard 2, but it's even more painful for a cowboy player to do that. And it wouldn't have improved his hand significantly. Well, it could make his hand up to a 7, so he can make a couple dollars. Yeah, that's a tough beat. That's just an unfortunate situation. One small blessing for him, though, is that MeepleMaven handily puts out another outlaw here, which is going to allow him to get just a little bit of extra cash to make up for the fact that he got just a smidge hosed in the advance of what had happened. That's fair. All right. We've got Meeple decides to drop out the engineers. This is interesting. This is actually a really interesting choice. What do you end up making cheap here? And so this option here, the flow here is very awkward because it's for TFF 1, 2, 3 stops probably, and then on turn 4 delivering. But it could be 1, 2, 3 stops as we see him kind of rushing over to do that. And for Meeple, it could have been like 1, 2, 3, 4 stops. I think that it's possible that they could have gotten into a game of chicken, but I think that if I was in Meeple's position, I would have considered putting out at least one of these builders on a 5 so that he could buy it for 5. He's a little bit cash strapped, but he's going to get some more back. Fortunately for him, these builders are going to be a push decision. One of them absolutely is going out at 5. So may have been absolutely prescient that a builder would be going into the 5 slot, which is going to allow him to buy it for discount. Now, that being said, there is a builder for 6, so it's not like it's a huge difference whether it's 5 or 6. And maybe putting 2 builders in 5 is too good for TFF if Meeple's not able to buy any of them. I could see it either way. A really fascinating choice that I don't think is going to happen, is probably not good, is that Abacus could actually just buy 2 builders instead of buying 2 cowboys and sort of pivot block his opponents, everybody into 3 builders, making for a really, really clunky game. And I think that I would advocate for that if it was less viable for someone to get a 4th builder. Because if you put everyone in the position of having 3 builders, then the question is who's in the better position. And it's possible that, you know, Abacus with the cowboy start and the cow start is a little bit of a stronger position. TFS got the nice taxer here, but that might not last for very long. So there would be an argument to be made for picking up both these builders. That being said, because there are more coming out on the market, absolutely the other players are going to get their 4th builder along the way there. I think that probably Abacus staying the course with the Cowboys is the wiser choice. TFF here does have a green to get up to $6, just going to allow him to build something. I think that going from 1 to 4 here is the fastest path he can do for the 4-4-4, but it's really awkward because this is the best taxer right now, and it is in a position, so he has to sacrifice something pretty important here, and that is the awkward part about doing the 1-4-8 situation that you have with this build. You know, I think even actually talking about it in retrospect, I think it would have been entirely viable to just play a level 1 building there that was like the cow market or even the shuffle of space, with the plan of doing exactly what he was doing, because he never actually ended up making any tax money off this, or at least not yet. Probably will in just a minute here. But by putting this taxer here, essentially forcing people down this middle path, but he's almost never going to take this action. And it's a pretty good action, honestly. $5 for removing a hazard becomes really significant in about the mid-game section, particularly in a game where I think scoring is going to be on the lower side with a 4-4-4 here and really bad deliveries. Like this doesn't have like the big builder combos. Like we're building the 4-4-4, getting a couple stations, 10-pointer. I guess it depends on how long the game is, because if your 4-4-4 can slot into a bunch of these. But like, check this out. The very first station here is the one that rewards you for removing hazards. So the fact that this might end up being kind of a dud is a bummer. Now, that being said, TFF might actually just not be going for rushing a 4-4-4. Instead of, he figures he just kind of floods the board and chokes his opponents. That can be pretty painful for them. But I think the person that really benefits from that is ultimately going to be Abacus, because Cowboys are generally a cheaper strategy, and he'll be able to just sort of do his thing anyway. With the additional taxer in play, I think suddenly it doesn't make any sense for MeepleMaven here to remove this hazard, because it's not like paying 3 to only pay 1 to TFF rather than paying 2 to TFS is any better. I think if this building wasn't there, there's a very good chance that Meeple here does spend the 5, does remove this, but instead he says, you know what, I'm actually just planning on going up to my extra builder. He can, with this amount of money, if he stops in and picks up $4 more, might even be able to buy both builders to go to 5, and then still build kind of the 4. Now, actually, now that I'm saying that out loud, I'm not a huge fan, because he needs to immediately build after this. So let's see how much money he needs. It's 6 plus 4 is 10, plus another 8 here is 18. So he would need $18 to run both of these, paying 2 out. So I don't know, maybe actually paying this $5 is sort of speculative anyway. But point is that he's got enough to build the 444 pretty much immediately. And so he's going to win the race in terms of getting the big boy set up. And I wonder, he could choose to set it up on the latter half of the track so he can hit it kind of immediately, like throw it right here, shoot into the end zone. It's bad in terms of its positioning on the board because it's right after this action you want to take. The other option is to put it on this desert path and just sort of acknowledge that the desert's going to be miserable, especially since TFF leaned into making it so miserable. I think that's probably makes a lot more sense, is that we're going to see a yellow building here in the desert. That's what I suspect. Abacus's hand here is... he might decide that he wants to go and pick up, cycle the deck, throw those 2 gray cows away. But he admittedly needs a gray cow for this location here. So we're going to see a double cowboy pickup along the way here. And looks like he's going to debate whether he wants to actually discard his white cow, because he knows that if he discards it now for $2, he might not be able to discard it for $4. And he absolutely needs $6 when he goes here so that he can buy the good friend Hereford here. So if he discards the white for $2 right now, it's actually entirely possible he doesn't draw it on the reshuffle and then can't buy the Hereford when he gets here, which would be pretty devastating, frankly. So maybe he just says, you know what, I'm not getting the $2, so be it. He's now in a position of choosing whether he's going to remove the taxer from the desert here or take maximum points and remove this one right here. I'm pretty sure the taxer from the desert here is going to be the right call, because I do think that in the previous board state, it was very likely that we were seeing a yellow 444 building going right here. And so that would have been pretty expensive, even though Cowboys probably can spend most of their money down here. He would just sort of be stuck at 4 Cowboys for the rest of the game, which is not bad. You can win this game with 4 Cowboys, no problem. A full commitment to a back end. I will take it as the rocks come. We're buddies here. This is a little bit rude. It's going to get in Abacus's way as he's coming around the bend here. And we're going to see that 444. Abacus is going to have to pay that tax every turn going forward. But this is a way for MeepleMaven to get certs. So he's basically says, look, I am not going to buy cows, but I am going to deliver to 10 by just having certificates solve my problem. Now, he has used his shuffler, so he is looking for kind of like a god draw. And admittedly, when he does this 444 in this location, he has to discard a cow to get that certificate. So we're going to see sort of a clunky choice at some point where he's going to have to stop and draw a card off the top of his deck if he wants to get the full 7 cards. He might actually, though, on this turn, do the 444 and land in one of these so that he can bring the station train home. I think that would be pretty viable. Looks like Abacus is all good with the white cow here. That'll give him the magic 7 that he needs. And buys himself the Hereford. Looks like he did indeed keep the card in his hand to minimize that randomness there. And it's entirely possible that he drew that Hereford straight off the top right now. So we're going to have to see, because he could have really bad or really good draws in the aftermath of that. It's tough to tell. We're going to see the 444 get plopped into play here. And unsurprisingly, by the way, TFF stopped to pick up more money. These builders are just very, very expensive. Or not, the builders themselves are not expensive. It's just that the building strategy is expensive. He's going to need to buy the builder. He's going to need to put the building into play, take another building action. So he's going to get it set up basically like one lap after MeepleMaven. But he also has a lot more other infrastructure, other taxes on the board to annoy players. All right, Abacus here, almost certainly going to deliver. He might be debating a draw discard and what his odds are of drawing into, like, he's got 2 certs here. So it's not unreasonable to see a 10 delivery, depending on if he had pretty much like a God rip off the top. I think that his hand was a 1 and a 2, a gray and a green going into the shuffle. So, short of him essentially drawing the fiver, or both threes or something like that, or I guess one of the threes, this is actually really interesting. If he drew the fiver, he's basically there. He should absolutely just draw discard if he is trying to smooth out the draw there. If he drew one of the threeers and he has the hand that I remember, he would have a 1, 2, 3 and might be hoping for essentially another. Let me see if I can expand this for you, Meeple. There we go. 1, 2, 3. And if he has like a duplicate by drawing 2 cards and discarding 2 cards, he might rip into the 8 that he needs with the +2 to make 10. He discarded the 2 cards that we thought that he had. So there we have it, the 10. There we have it with a 3. I think I probably, to toot my own horn here, I think we said exactly what happened. He discarded these 2 cards that he had. Nope, because if he had these, maybe he had a white. Am I miscounting? No, I think he had a green and a gray. So I think he had 8. Okay, so he had 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then he drew duplicates and got nothing for it. So he was actually trying to draw into any of the 3 blacks to save a certificate, or the blue or the purple, which there were 5 of out of 9. Oh no, out of 13 cards in his deck, but he was drawing 2. Yeah, that's some pretty funny math, actually. Whether you would hit something else. To miss twice, 8 out of 13, and then 8 out of 12 is pretty bad. It's a pretty bad, well, it's not that bad of a break. It's like 40% or something like that. No, not 8 out of 12. 7 out of 12. Even still, something like 40-ish%. Maybe a little bit less. So a little bit unlucky. Good coin flip there would have saved the certificate situation. And it looks like he went ahead and grabbed movement speed, which I think makes sense. He can get from here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up here if nothing else comes and clogs the way. I absolutely buy that making a lot of sense. All right, we see MeepleMaven doing exactly what we mentioned, dropping in here, maxing out those certs. It's entirely possible, actually, that he's holding the sort of 2 white, 2 green, 2 black in hand right now and actually knows that this 4th permanent certificate here is a delivery, but also this removes a crucial 4th builder, which is going to allow him to essentially buy back that builder and do the same nonsense all over again. And there are builders still available, even though 2 players are going builders, because we flipped so many builders this game. So being the first onto the 4-4-4 thing really working out in MeepleMaven's favor, which I think makes a lot of sense. It's definitely my player that I think is favored to win in this moment. Though everybody's got something cool going on, right? Like TFF is behind in terms of this infrastructure, but has a better infrastructure for the end game. So behind in tempo, but better setup, right? He's got better cows. He's got buildings in better places that are taxing people or at least annoying people. The 4-4-4 here is going to be in a little bit of a better position, swinging him around to the end. I think the beginning of his lap is looking a little bit clunky right now. Like, it's not entirely clear what he does with his first moves, and so he needs to figure out how to make this bottom left corner something useful for him. But if he ends up getting move speed somehow, and he can actually just slingshot over to this building, thanks to the removal of the desert hazard, might actually end up working out for him, because he could bang, bang here. The 4-4-4 movement here is nice to get him into the end, but it's not great for the flow of his actual board state. That being said, he's going to get it up in just a moment here and get to shoot off behind, which will leave him some really nice flexibility. And then it's kind of a question of whether either of these 2 players are going to kind of pivot into grabbing these engineers and do something with that. The ones who's most set up to do that is Meeple, who can essentially use these moves to like throw either the engineers or the builders into these stations and sort of pivot into a completely different strategy, or just make sure that he's buying the cheapest workers available that do something immediately when you buy them. Abacus here has to now decide whether he wants $4 or $2 and a draw discard, or if he just wants to go for it. Looks like he's actually saying, I'm not even going to stop in here. I don't need to buy cows at the first part. I can buy cows in the second part by coming here and maybe removing a hazard. He does not decide to remove a hazard, and then he can whip around cow and then deliver. Or actually, does he have enough money to buy 2 cowboys, 14, 15, 16? No, he does not. So I suspect that if he actually had stopped for $4, he maybe could have bought 2 cowboys. But I agree. I don't think there's a reason for him to necessarily have to do that right away, going and doing this and coming in. I wonder if he should have spent the 7, though. If he's not stopping and buying, folks, if he spends the 7, goes down to 4, and just claims these victory points here, it helps MeepleMaven out a little bit. But ultimately, like, what I think Abacus's loop from here is like, buy cows, remove hazards, buy cows, remove hazards. Like, he is the linear victory point scoring strategy for the rest of the game, and is setting the pace for these players who are going to be moving through at a kind of quick pace, with the 4-4-4s accelerating them into the end zones a lot of the time, I think. MeepleMaven did indeed have, it looks like, 6 to deliver. What was the delivery here? Oh, he had the full 7. So he even ripped off the top of the deck the appropriate one. I hope for our sake that it was the one that he already had that planned out. And it wasn't just like a complete god draw off the top, because that would be pretty sick. Gets to save himself some certificates here and delivers to the 10 with relative ease, almost certainly taking move speed, right? Yeah, move speed is just really, really good in 3 players. I mean, it's really good in all of them. Who am I kidding? But it's especially good in 3 players. We see the upgrade to the 4-4-4. And now pretty much everyone's fully online. You know, we have not hit the halfway mark where we do our first cow delivery. Is this halfway? I always think of this in my head as halfway. Okay, it is halfway. Hooray. And yeah, without the money on hand, I suspect that this is just a cow deliver. Oh, maybe we're a little over flush in green cows here, we want to fix the hand a little bit. If we have 2 greens, there's a completely reasonable building, this building or the taxer building, to put into play. And looks like he's going to go with the brutal choice of the taxer building just on TFF. That is a really interesting choice. That's basically saying, I want to get these $2 every turn, but I'm specifically choosing this player to hose. I think it's an interesting choice. Like, I think this is a bit of a disrespect for MeepleMaven's position. Oh, they're playing live point scoring, so we actually know exactly how many points they have. Disrespect for MeepleMaven's position, because MeepleMaven's never going to come over this way. I actually think that if you're going to play taxer, my instinct is that it should have gone on the bottom here, because the movement speed, this is going to, first of all, clog up other people's movement speed. And the other players really don't have a lot going on in the bottom left corner here. So just clogging up their movement speed is worth it alone. But also, there's a fair amount of taxes here. He's going to get paid every single time by TFF. He's going to get paid sometimes by MeepleMaven if he's trying to move through quickly, rather than kind of go this long way into this like nowheresville it's going. And we have an additional water hazard coming out next. So I'd be curious what the thinking is about this one, because I do think that it's better in this bottom row here. MeepleMaven has a fair amount of money, but he's probably counting what he needs to do with his turn. He's got 5 moves, so he could actually just slingshot over here right now, which is another reason, by the way, why this building should have gone right here, because that would remove that option. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would remove that option from him. But if he goes over here, pays 2, goes down to 12, that's another 11 out right here. Immediately buys this, gets to spend, I guess there's really no way you're going to build a 4 here unless you're upgrading this 2 into a 6 or something like that. Probably unlikely that's going to happen. I think it's a lot more likely that we're going to see, I mean, he doesn't really care too much about what building gets built, I think, at this stage. Probably just drop one of these 3ers, maybe this one that gives coins somewhere convenient that he could like pick up stuff later. Like, actually, it's not bad for him to put it in this spot right here, because it's not going to be long. He does block himself. That's move 5 into the building space if no one else ends up building anything along this. But if he drops it here, he at the very least guarantees that he's got somewhere decent to drop, pick up some money before he goes into all of his nonsense over here. I don't know. That's actually a tough call. The self-own is probably not worthwhile. He could put it actually somewhere on the back end of the trail if he wanted to like decide to go there, right? Because it's like you can get some extra money and the draw discard. Alternatively, maybe it's just time to start setting up places where things are going to get upgraded. Yeah, cardboard at this stage, anywhere that MeepleMaven's going to place it is going to block himself as much as it is the other players. A nice smooth lap allowing him to come in here and then just sort of finish out is nice. He doesn't want this part of the road to be blocked, and the other players want this part of the road to be blocked. I guess TFF doesn't because he also would want to come in here, but he doesn't have the move speed, I think. Yeah, he's only got the 3 move speed, so he's kind of just chunking along in a slow way anyway. TFF, of course, is going to bite the bullet, pay the $2, come in here, shoot up here. I think it's probably just going to deliver at this stage. Interesting. This is pretty gnarly play. I think this is indicating that Meeple's not going to end up stopping here because he gave up the value of the discounted purchases. He's just going to actually go straight to here and shoot through and do his business. But I think this is pretty painful for everyone, including Meeple, because it really slows this move party down. And it's tough to say. It's entirely possible that, he's going to get paid for this a fair amount. But money is not short this game because of the fact that there were so many bandits out. Most people have already done the important things with money. So the taxers do still matter, but they don't matter as much as it, I think, feels like they would matter at this stage. We did have a cow market retrigger, which allowed Abacus to buy a second Hereford here. I read that to mean that he is planning on buying more cowboys because the Shorthorn makes his deck better, but it's the worst Shorthorn possible. So at the same time, you do kind of like want to diversify the cows in your deck for that kind of God hand draw. But if he buys more of these cowboys, then he can flip more cards out and draw into the Shorthorns. The fact that we flip so many Black Anguses on that refill is a pretty rough beating for Abacus. I think he's probably in trouble at this stage. I think that this play might be just have just been too good for Meeple, who I think is like in a very strongly favored position right now. Yeah, like we said, he just skipped over this spot. He's just whipping straight around. And he's got so much money that he's going to be able to buy another builder. Unless TFF buys both of them. But if TFF buys both of them, yeah, it's a little bit awkward. And he has all this money because he took the $12 from this station here, which is not my favorite station, but looks like he grabbed, that's a very good objective. Is that 2 buildings? 2 buildings and 2 stations? He's already got the 2 stations and the 2 buildings. That's pretty monstrous. TFF picks up a pile of money. If he can get into buying workers before Meeple can, then Meeple's going to have to pivot into buying engineers, which honestly isn't the worst. He'd just pivot into buying engineers and then drop his builders off along the way. So even if he does get blocked here, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. I think he's absolutely in the driver's seat. And we are proven that this bottom row here, this building is officially dead. Delivery, another 8 delivery here. This one looks like it was with oh wow, it was a 10 delivery. And we don't know what he drew after this building 2A here, but yeah, Abacus's draw is not helping him out. He needed one more cert for the 12. It's legitimately worth wondering whether he should have stopped here for a certificate to get the 12. If you get the 12, then what are you doing? Probably buying hand size. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Honestly, the move speed's not bad either because it would let him go from cow market to cow market the way the board is set up right now. So I don't know, possibly stopping for a turn here and getting to that 12 delivery might have made a big difference, but it is a lot more convenient for him if he can just kind of make this a reality without having to pay out of the nose for it. One of the problems that I think he's facing right now is awkward draws early in your deck tend to mean that you have awkward draws later in your deck. So, he did the draw discard at the beginning of the deck for this first 10 delivery and then ends up, I think, hitting a similar glut. I mean, he has the 5 and the 3, but the double blacks, really hurt him. And literally any other cow except for that second black would have made a big difference. I mean, honestly, he could have stopped and done like maybe a draw discard even based on the fact that he's got... Well, no, because he had another black in his deck. So actually, I guess the odds of drawing doubles were relatively high given what we see in his deck. But that's what I mean about the earlier awkward draws, right? You drew greens and whites or greens and grays early in the lap. So that works out a little bit unfortunately, and that is the curse of playing Cowboys, or just the curse of Great Western Trail in general. My sense of this game is that like when you first start playing, it feels very lucky how you draw things, and then you get good and you're like, oh, I mean, you just manage your hand. And then when you get really good, it's like, oh no, it's just lucky how you draw the cards in your deck because now everybody's playing really well anyway. There's an undo on the whole thing. Ship them all out. Is he trying to save money? Because he could not do these 4 X's, take the money, deliver to Fulton instead. So it looks like he decided the $4 was important to him. He's paying $4 here, which would drop him down to 14. We said that we thought that he was going to be buying Cowboys. He needs 15 to buy Cowboys. So he doesn't have the move to make all that a reality, but he could come here, spend $1. And if he's got a black here and a white here, or if he stops and picks up money, there's a lot of ways that he can essentially buy double Cowboys. I think stopping and getting another bandit, though, is not ideal. Usually as Cowboys, you want to keep the pace moving rather than slow it down. And we see MeepleMaven here using his huge piles of cash to just whip around and grab some victory points by clearing out the water a little bit there. And this is where he essentially like penalized himself by placing this building here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 only got him this far. Now, at least he can take advantage of that action, but he is going to guarantee that he can essentially get the 4th builder if he likes. I wouldn't be surprised to see him do like a builder engineer buy here. I think you could do some cute stuff with that. Or just not. I don't know. He could buy both the builders and just make TFF have a really sad game, I guess. We can get a slow roll from the Cowboys player here who's going to end up buying cows and from here, 1, 2, 3, 4. From here, he can actually go straight here. So I suspect actually he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, buy the 2 Cowboys, and then buy another cow here. And then the lap going forward is just cow, something here, cow. And that's basically the rest of his game. 6 Cowboys is not bad for him here because he wants to be able to flip more cards into the market given how uncooperative this redeal was. And looks like Meeple's just going to add even more pain here. And he will not be essentially penalized for the fact that he only dropped a 1er there because he's upgraded this to a 5er maximum upgrade given that he bought the 4 builders. So that's going to be pretty painful. And as we said, TFF here is just in a position where he sort of is now playing absolute underdog. to Meeple's position by being slower. And that's often the case in the builder game. If you are second place builder, you often just lose. You need to have something else going on. And he tried with the taxation, but I think he also needed to get 4A online somehow, somewhere. Make it so that he's spending his obscene gobs of cash removing hazards and scoring victory points that way. Instead, it's just blocked over here, preventing him from scoring the victory points of this building. And he did it, I think, to put the screws on the other players, but this wasn't a game where putting the screws on the other players was that important because everyone was rich. Everyone already had all the workers that they really needed to make things work. I'm pretty sure this is going to be hazard removal for 4 points. And then there's an interesting choice. Probably he dumps the builder again to re-trigger the build thing. Although at this stage, there's not a lot of exciting stuff that's being built at 4. I mean, I guess you're building up to these 3s. You're just getting it for the free action, essentially, which is nice. But admittedly, the second engineer isn't really doing too much, and removing it doesn't do too much. So probably the builder goes away here, unless you're basically trying to plan to get to 5 or 6 builders. But that's kind of tough given that the 9's here, and these two guys, I guess they'll come out in the 8, and he'll get the first crack at the 8. But it's going to be taxing in terms of the finances there. Yeah, and wow, dirty enough. Meeple gets to get paid the $3 by both of his opponents coming through here. It was already 2, so the upgrade to it is 3 is like really not as rude as it would be in a 4-player game. Oh man, and then actually I didn't see this until now, but to me, this is the writing on the wall. There's absolutely no way anyone is getting this one before Meeple Maven, and this is just going to be the absolute nail in the coffin. It's too early to say GG, but I think it's GG. And TFF just has no system for catching up at this stage. He's just the slower 4-4-4. Yeah, I hate 4-4-4. The other building I think is a lot more interesting. It's a smidge harder to build. Multiple people can get the certificates and make use of them. It's okay to get it mid game versus early. Yeah, and Meeple again with a pretty diverse hand. His deck has not coughed up the awkward, 2-2-1-1 or like black gray that you think sometimes will happen in a builder strategy. They've just kind of come out in a way that's worked out nicely. TFF finally getting a rock hazard out there, probably not long enough for it to really matter, because I wouldn't be surprised to see Meeple just buy it off the board pretty much immediately. But another one there is nice for him to see. I think stoppering that top path is going to be one of the only ways that he sees this game slows down a little bit. And now we get some fun cow buying action. I think this is going to be a flip off the top first. Unfortunately for him, didn't flip a short horn. Otherwise, it would have been buy 2 short horns with 5 cowboys for $8. So that's definitely a whiff. So my instinct here, what are we at? 5, 8, 9. We're not refilling this market anyway. Is I would flip again. So now we're down to 4 cowboys. I would flip one more time here because we've already got 2 Herefords. And then from there, we can decide to either buy like a short horn or 2 Corrientes or Corriente and a long horn or something like that. But I think one more flip here is probably correct. Maybe you just reset. Okay. Coming in here, buying some new employees. $10. Woo-wee. That is an expensive builder. And then buying himself a cheap engineer to throw into the slot here. The fact that he can keep affording this nonsense is partially this making him a couple bucks, but it's mostly the 4-4-4. It's mostly the bandits that were out there. He's only taken 2 bandits, but they were just both very high value. $5 at least. And then respectable deliveries that he's like sometimes not even paying X's on, right? Every time he delivers, he's like properly getting $6, $7, $8. Long debate there about whether we're putting out the cowboy, but then we realize it's the tenor. We refill the market here, but it's just full of Black Anguses. So nothing's happening here. Looks like we've got a normal 7 delivery here, which means that Abacus is looking at basically a deck full of Herefords. So we can get a very good delivery on the next go around. But that's pretty much going to be the end, right? It's going to be 1, 2, 3. So we'll get maybe 2 more deliveries. This as an 8 is going to go probably here into Peoria. But did he need to spend a certificate? He did need to spend a certificate to make that happen. Which makes sense, but there's sort of the penalty for having played into Fulton last turn because he could have played there without the certificate. So if he needs a certificate later, that extra $4 that he wanted to claim last go around is going to come back to haunt him. I actually don't remember what the money situation was, how low he went when he got to this spot. Because he paid $5 to go through here. So he might have needed the $4 anyway. People here trundling over to build. He's got 5 guys now, which is great because there's a couple of 5 cost buildings. He can say, I'm going to do a little bit more on the taxation route if he wants to. He can just straight up go for victory points. I think at this point it's just kind of showboating, so it doesn't really matter too much. He could throw a taxer down on this row right here, but it's also going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's also going to slow him down from his moves. But it'll slow everyone down, so it's not unreasonable. And he can also go to this action space. So I like that he put it at the end of the route. He can go to this action space, and then from here, essentially, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He actually can't quite get there. So quite a log jam at this point. I do think that this was a good placement for this building in terms of just sort of slowing up the process of getting along here. Removing a high victory point hazard, just with all this extra cash on hand. But the cheap builders have all been purchased. So essentially at this stage, it's a little bit awkward because TFF, I guess, like could buy into 1921. Yeah, he could buy into them to go up to 6. Probably will. Probably should. We'll see some cow purchases here. I think we're going to see, first we're going to see a flip off the top. Kind of a no-brainer, I think. I think that discarding this black cow might, that's actually tough. So, yeah, he flips the 2 short horns here. And option is to buy them both, but unfortunately for him, he just keeps flipping the ones that are only worth 3 points. So that would spend him down to $2 right now, which would be an option for sure. Otherwise, he can keep drawing cards off the cattle market. If he does, he should essentially spend the 4th cowboy, so flip 4 more cows. Hope to flip a shorthorn 5, which he could then buy with 3, or maybe a couple Corrientes, and then he can like buy those along with the longhorns just for victory points. Plan of buying these other guys later. Looks like he's going to at least go for the first one. He could buy the Hereford now for 5 points, but I think you might as well just flip more and buy the Corriente and longhorn and get more cows into play so you have more information for the next go around. And an awkward amount of money that you're left with that you're paying fully in taxes. This is what I was saying. It was a little bit quirky about discarding the black cow. I'm going to assume that he had multiple black cows in his hand. Oh, I finally flipped a decent one. I'll buy it. That sounds pretty reasonable to me. It does cost a victory point not to buy these guys, but I think it's probably worth it for the so there's a potential that we're going to hit a reshuffle and he'll do one more delivery. Both of our opponents are delivering before us, so it's actually Not super likely. But to be honest, I think it's all just sort of a exercise in futility anyway at this stage. I mean, the players should still make their best choices on each of their turns, but yeah, at this stage, we can't stop the player who's already winning by 20 points apparently from getting just an additional 10 points pretty easily. Seems pretty good. One consolation that these players might have is that there isn't nearly enough money for Meeple to buy the 6th builder, get the cheap building that way just yet. So I'll have to slow it down a little bit. Although I was kind of planning on stopping here anyway, so it's not a long slowdown. I think he's supposed to put out the bandit here for what it's worth, because he's likely to be the one to get it, right? Both the other players are past it. He's going to stop here and pick up the money. All right. I am suspecting a very expensive double builder buy and a full cash out here. Alternatively, moving here, sliding in and building something over this 1. So jumping the 1 up to a 5, probably this. Yep. Could also just go straight for victory points here, but I think the taxer makes a little bit more sense here. And then Abacus just charges straight through. TFF manages to steal $1 from MeepleMaven through taxing first and running him out of cash. Abacus is deciding, do I really care that much about getting to this position? Making 1 building for 1 point. What would he build? His shifter. Which doesn't really fit anywhere on the board. There's nowhere where he wants to shift to. And this is where we're seeing this this building coming back to haunt him, we were talking about earlier. He's just got nothing to do in the middle here, except for maybe this building. But he won't have the cash because he's always paying out tons along the way here. But, you know, if he goes to this building, he's got pairs and discards them, he just ends up paying 3 in taxes immediately, which isn't terribly helpful either. So it seems much more likely than, yeah, that just paying through here. And TFF, we know, is not the threat to him if he's trying to win the game. You know, he's got to beat MeepleMaven. So giving him $1 is not that big a deal. And you give $3 to the player who's kind of losing. And I like this as the location for this. I mean, there's nowhere else, as I said, really to play it for it to do its job. So by putting it there, you're just slowing down the other players when you know that you are always stopping in the bottom left corner here. I don't think it's really going to make that much of a difference because of where our players are stopping anyway at this stage, but the concept of it is good. I guess another option to consider would have been to put it in one of these 2 spots, but that only really matters if the other one gets blocked, essentially. Collecting the bounty here for $5. Not sure what the debate is. Oh, maybe he's got his objective in hand. I don't know what the objective was. If it's a ghost mover, that would be just kind of bonus screw you. Yeah, I don't remember what its top thing was. If it's a train movement, that's great. Just get in. Oh, but then you'd have to pay the builder. It's actually kind of awkward. It's a train mover, actually, you want to buy the builder first and then move in so you can pay the builder. Yeah, he's just living the maximum 444 dream. My primary method of blocking the 444, by the way, is having some players successfully play engineers grabbing the stations. Because usually just moving the train and not getting the stations is pretty miserable. Just grabbing a couple of victory points here. And then stopping for a certificate. I think this is basically saying I'm at 9 and I need 1 more to get to 10. Otherwise, I'm going to be making some kind of cursed deliveries here. And yeah, we're 3/4 of the way through the game, and TFF still in a position where he's just been moving the slow 3, which has definitely been pretty painful for him. So getting up to that 5 move there is going to make a pretty big difference. Quick delivery here from Avacus. Oh my god. That is truly awful. In case you can't see, he had 2 5s and 2 1s. That is that's truly incredible. Holy cow. That's perhaps the most embarrassing delivery I've ever seen. I mean, I've seen the 4 1s, and there are worse deliveries for sure. 3 blacks and a gray is one of my least favorite ones to have to deliver. But yeah, 2 5s and a 1 1. And he just discarded a white and a gray. So he probably drew at least one other gray. I guess is that he drew gray and a purple. Purchase here. I'm pretty sure, an option is to spend 6 for this, but I think just spending 5 for the tenor is the way to go. It's entirely plausible that we're just not going to have enough money ever coming back to it to like build. So we should just build the more efficient building right now. I guess a final argument to be made for the 6 for the 8 is that we're in a position where we're going to lose our money anyway. But still, it's 2 fewer victory points, and I think we just don't want to mess with the chance of not having gotten this. We know we're going to use. We know we're going to use. We need $6 here. Hold up. Reverse what I said a little bit. We're going to pay 2 here, which means we need to keep. Okay, so he's already a step ahead of me. Because we had to pay 2 here, we're going to be left with $2. This is, however, a big mistake because a dollar tax is about to go into play. So now it costs 3, putting you down to 1. And actually, if we were doing this line of underpaying, we are supposed to actually just put a 1 building out. So either we needed to say, look, we are there we see it. Either we're saying, look, we're delaying on this or something like that. He does have the backup, so he could move forward 1 2 space backup 1. No, it doesn't really work. Move forward 2 backup 1. I guess that's an option. So like I think probably what's gonna have to happen here is not moving. Although that puts it in a position where suddenly TFF can jump us, which is pretty dangerous. Yeah, this was a mistake. I mean, again, I think we're so far ahead, or MeepleMaven's so far ahead that it doesn't matter. But either build big and acknowledge that you need to get the money the other way, right? Like $4, move the train 1 space, move here, take $2, move the train the last space, and just build the big building. Or just do the 1 so we have enough going through the taxers here. But I think I like the big building play more because generally, 4 points or 1 point versus 10 points, you're not going to get much better than 5 or 6 points on an action. Now, admittedly, it decreases our options of doing those things later. Let's see. What did Abacus do? Just flip the whole deck, just rage flip the deck and bought a Corriente. And TFF did delivery. Oh, of course, he did the delivery that did the thing. And did you get the 10? Of course, you got the 10 and the move speed, right? Oh no, he did take move speed, but he took victory points rather than the faster move speed, which I think is fair. 4 probably gets him most of the places he wants to go. 2 3 4, 2 3 4. Yeah, it does. How did he do this? Did I miss something? Oh, he got $2 from Abacus. Oh, he saved his life. Abacus saved him. I missed that because I was too busy talking about other stuff. Well, that's great. That's what taxes do. They give it and take it away. So no actual slowing in tempo for at this point, MeepleMaven, who has the combined score of the other players. Abacus going to basically have a dud turn. He is going to go here and upgrade one of his buildings. So, reflecting back on the game, I think the double builds on the desert was rough. I think this build was definitely a mistake and should have been down here. But I don't think either of those things mattered. I think this is one of those games where going first was just very, very good because you got to start with a whole pile of extra money, be a little bit ahead of the tempo of other players. There were so many builders. There were so many builders that it kind of really rewarded the first person to push through and just do the 444 thing. And MeepleMaven did not do what I would do. I would have done TFF like things of like buying cows and like stopping and like setting up other infrastructure. Like really, this 444 building was, I guess he built this one in the bottom left here, but the 444 building was like really the infrastructure that he focused the most on. And he even still had to kind of like stop and pick up some money along the way, but really just prioritized buying out those builders. Yeah, too many builders early is rough. I legitimately think that it's if it was a 4-player game, 3 people fighting for the builders is fully viable in a setup like this. But then often what happens is that the cowboy player ends up winning that game because none of those players end up getting on top of the dog pile, or one of those players breaks out of the dog pile and ends up doing essentially what MeepleMaven did. Maybe a little bit slower, maybe a little bit more expensive. But it gets really difficult when you have that many builders flipped out at the beginning. It's actually, I have to say, I think they make for my least favorite games of Great Western Trail, just because it's such a race to get those builders. And I find that when it's a little bit more difficult to get the builders, when people have to fight a little extra, pay a little extra, it slows them down enough that it becomes more interesting. There's more tension there. A quick builder setup is just very powerful. Finally, TFF gets to use building 4A here and powers through. No builders, of course, at the end because we use them all at the beginning, so no discount. Double buy here for TFF, who's going to end the game with just like an absurd amount of cash. He'll at least get to upgrade that 1 to the 5 for 10 points. I guess it doesn't want to be that ever. Nope, still is 11. And is this going to be an end game here? I don't think there's much reason. Well, I mean, Abacus gets to do this and this. That's quite a fair number of points. Sort of depends on his delivery. I guess he's going to have to pay out. Let's assume that he has a 12 delivery because he just deserves it. But he's going to pay out 7 of it. So he's not going to have that much money on hand. So yeah, ending the game is almost certainly correct. And if he ends the game, we can't have MeepleMaven delivering again. Actually, I guess MeepleMaven doesn't want to deliver again. There's sort of a curious situation here where he can force TFF to end the game. Looks like. So he instead is going to take that extra action. 9's the delivery. So he's delivering to 4. God, that is an awful Cowboys game. Cowboys be like that sometimes. but he'll have more money, so he can't actually do this and this, even if he's paying $2 along the way. So makes a little bit more sense that he doesn't end the game if he can't do that delivery. And that's going to mean that MeepleMaven's going to have 2 more actions here. He has a lot of money. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is one of those actions. And then probably this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 10. That's 3 is 13. And then build this guy for 5 is 18. Enough money to do it. Always enough money. And that's plus 4 points, plus 10. I mean, it's certainly the most points that he can make. I guess another action after that really doesn't matter. Like Abacus, by not ending the game, will give MeepleMaven another turn. But that other turn for MeepleMaven is going to be, maybe he could walk it back a step and has the money to like remove a hazard for 4 points. Or from here, he does this, but he won't have the $8. So it's like a point for the coins. And then nothing. Like he's like forced to deliver. Oh, he got to 12? How did you get to 12? I missed that. That's really insulting. People reveal a 2, 4, 5. Oh, he had 5 certs. Yeah, wasn't even a good hand. Just had built up the certs over the course of the game. I guess from doing this over and over and over again. For him to deliver to 12, so he gained 6 points. I guess he gained 9 points by not having to deliver down here. It did cost him a fair amount of points though, right? For the station master to spend all those certificates. So at least he paid a little bit for it. Doing it again. We're committed to the action. Miserable delivery. Are any of these good at least? We've got 2 oranges, but none of these. We've got 1 hazard. So we're literally drawing off the deck. And of course, it is always San Francisco or New York City or whatever when you draw off the deck. So MeepleMaven now going to have 2 actions. What do we say? We needed 10, 13. Well, we could just show us right now. Discards the white. 18, it's going to be 10, and then another 5 is 15, so $3. So if he had a pair in hand, I do think it would be correct to have stopped here and purchased the 4-pointer, because I don't think the next action is going to be worth more than 4 points. TFF ends the game here. Scoring a paltry couple points. Might be enough to beat out this Cowboy, though. Pretty miserable circumstance for the Cowboy to have also lost to the second builder who got nothing on the 444. Part of that was the deck not cooperating. Part of it is, I think, just having a really bad loop. I mean, this desert loop was misery. And that is the tough thing about being Cowboys, especially Cowboys with no shufflers. Like, you're really at the mercy of the other players and your deck. You have just very limited autonomy compared to players who are shaping the game board, right? I think that's why builders are best, is because the power to shape the game board gives you the most control over the other players, the most control over your own gameplay flow. And so, like, I think actually, like, Cowboys is, like, raw, the most powerful strategy, but it's just so volatile. It's just so able to be disrupted by other things that are going on. It's going to be a 4-point buy here. Move 2, drop to $4. If he has $6, then it's going to be this Hereford. If he has $6 by having the Black Cow, which I think won't quite put him over. He does. Huzzah. Goodbye 2 Corrientes. That's as close as it gets. Just flip out some more for fun. Yeah. One more flip. He flips the whole deck. Why not? Flex. Of course, flipping stuff doesn't really help you win the game. And, oh, a cert is 3 points because that gets them to an even cert. So 3 points there plus 4 points here plus, or 4 coins here is like another point. Plus this is going to be another point. Oh, he did have the money? From taxes again? Great. Well, good thing that we didn't listen to me and didn't stop here because all these other systems were good and viable. And we're going to put objectives out from our deck into play, but I think it might be true that TheMeepleMaven emerges as the BGFC champion with a combined score, with defeating our opponent's combined scores at the end. And a dominating performance with a 107 score. GG.